Let's stay with this issue and speak to independent political analyst Theo and Dr. Tim Maake, a local governance expert. Thank you so much to you both for your time. I'll begin with you, Theo. Were you surprised by the court's ruling?
Yeah, I was surprised because it was a 50-50 kind of ruling here, but the courts went where they were previously, and that is to follow the strict rules and regulations of local government. One of the key aspects of local government is that there are very specific ways in which you do things. The amount of time that is allowed for meetings to take place or to provide notice and so on and so on. And the courts are very strict if you don't adhere to these specific regulations. So in a way, it was a decision on a technical basis that brought her back the mayorship.
I suppose then, Theo, you're not surprised by the court hitting hard against the speaker, saying, of course, the processes appear to have been flouted here and also being slapped with the cost order. So certainly how she handled this matter is also under scrutiny in this judgment.
Yeah, definitely. The role that COPE played, COPE as a political party is facing a lot of problems in terms of sustaining itself over time, but they're a small party, and in coalitions very often we find that the small players try to be the kingmakers, and if they move from one, let's call it coalition or alliance, to another, they can change the whole situation. And yes, you're right. The order made by the judge is almost a penalty.
And I'm going to come back to you, Theo, in just a moment, because I'm also interested in your thoughts, regarding what happens going forward. But Dr. Maake, there's something that, is not talked about much here. We talk about the politics and what is exactly going on, the court's judgment and all of that. But essentially, at the heart of this also becomes the citizenry, because coalition politics do affect the people of, Johannesburg right now, as we're looking at this particular metro. How can this then impact the citizenry, especially when we look at coalition politics as well as service delivery?
Thanks to you, Bongi, and good evening to you, the viewers, and Theo. I think basically the city is now on I would say it is now on a stagnant, on the basis that whether Dr. Phalatse is back or Dodo fights back, the crux of the matter is that the council of the city of Johannesburg is not going to focus on its core business, which is providing basic services to the community. Each political party is going to focus on how do we retain power, how do we fight to have power back. And that in itself, it will lead to a lot of court challenges, as Theo has indicated. In this case, the judgment is more based on procedural aspects than any other thing, which tells us that the battle is not over. Phalatse could be back in the city as the executive mayor of the city of Johannesburg in a few days' time, depending on how things will unfold over the next few days. She might even be out of office, or alternatively, the speaker would be under siege, firstly based also on the judgment that the court has meted against her. You might find a situation whereby after 4 or 5 days, there's a new speaker in the city of Johannesburg, because that is the only thing that can guarantee the Dr. Phalatse stay in that position. But she may not sustain it for as long as the speaker will still be in office. So it tells you that the battlefield is now drawn, and the community is going to continue to suffer. Why? Primarily because service delivery is not going to be the focal area by all the political parties in council.
Why do you think we still see these motions being, tabled as much as we are, Dr. Maake?
The fundamental thing, Bongiwe, is that I'll repeat some of the things that we have said before. There is a lack of political maturity in terms of the public office bearers or the public representatives at a local government level, primarily because Whether we like it or not, their core business is on providing basic and sustainable services to the community. Now, for you to build a road, there has to be designs and all of those things. Now, what is it that will make you fight if it is not for the control of resources? Because if it is for the provision of basic services to the community, the methodologies are the same. They are laid down in terms of the technical processes that must be followed. Coupled with what the law says, the IDP of the municipality, it's a 5-year strategic document for any municipality, for the municipality to say, how are we going to make sure that we continue to provide sustainable basic services to our communities? Now, that has been put on the side, and the battle is on who has to control the city, who has to control the municipality. And unfortunately, it is going to affect the constitutional obligation of the municipality, thereby continuing to make the plight of the communities to suffer.
Theo, listening to what Dr. Maake had to say earlier on, I was listening to the ANC in Johannesburg this afternoon, speaking to one of our reporters, Mbalendle Mteto. They say that she does not have the numbers and cannot sustain this position as mayor, and that's why she's taking her fight to the courts instead of looking to council to be able to assist her in that regard. Also, at the same time, there is, of course, the Democratic Alliance, the FedEx there, not backing the decision for her to work with the EFF in this regard. And she says that she doesn't want a formal coalition agreement here. She just simply wants some kind of an arrangement. Looking at these dynamics, I don't know, what does the picture look like for her in the coming days?
Well, if I had to give a title or a heading to what we're witnessing, I would call it the dynamic instability. It's very dynamic and to a certain extent unstable. So therefore, Tim mentioned the role of the speaker. The speaker should know what he or she can do, and she must execute, or he must execute that correctly. A lot of the difficulty in local government and our metros sits with the position of the speaker that can allow or not allow certain things to happen. Secondly, it is the executive power that resides in the executive mayor to do things, to implement, to make things happen. And it is through things happening that people can see service being delivered. So there's a huge battle going on to see who can show what. Remember, the battle for South Africa in terms of national politics, which will come to a head in May of 2024, will be a battle primarily in our cities. South Africa is becoming a country where the metropolitan population or the urbanized population is about 70% of the total population. So we talk about urban politics. So what you are doing at local government has a direct influence on how political parties will see themselves or will perform 15 months from now. So there's more than just Johannesburg in this game that we are seeing.
And, you know, just before we look at that very closely, Theo, because I'd like to get your thoughts on then what this means going forward, particularly as we see what's happening with black leaders in the Democratic Alliance. But Dr. Maake, when you look at the multi-party agreement within the city of Johannesburg, Dr Phalatse is saying that she's going to see if everyone is on board. Do you think everyone could still be on board, given what we see playing out in the public domain?
I really wouldn't say yes or no, but the crux of the matter is that the ground is now shaky to a point that everyone who's going to be a little bit sober in terms of their approaches stand a good chance to bring a little bit of stability. But considering what Theo has just said in terms of the national dynamics, in terms of politics, one would have a doubt as to whether she will be able to achieve that which she wants to achieve, primarily because she needs to also obey and observe the protocols of her own political party. And that is exactly why we're saying that there is a need for political maturity. Why we talk of political maturity? Once you are elected into council, you become a public representative, which simply means that your interest should not be towards the party that brought you into council, but towards the people who are awaiting the delivery of services as a result of your presence in the municipal council. So currently, as matters stands, let's not expect any sustainability or any stability in as far as what is going to be happening in the city of Johannesburg. A point in case, we have seen the lessons coming from the city of Tshwane. And to this date, the city of Tshwane, in terms of the provision of basic services and issues around governance, there has not been any major improvement whatsoever the case might be. But the principle here is it comes from the days when the city of Tshwane found itself in this same predicament, where the court had to say the decision by the provincial executive council of Gauteng was set aside. So we're going to see the carrying on of this kind of situations within the boardrooms, but at the end of the day, on the ground, it is the communities that are going to suffer.
It's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out. And gentlemen, I think we're going to be back here again talking about this issue, because I suspect we're going to see more developments. Let me thank you both for your time. That is political analyst Theo Phalatse and Dr. Maake, a local governance expert.